Today you will learn how to graph linear inequalities in two variables using x and y. Write today's date 6.7 graph linear inequalities in two variables, and this is the last lesson in this unit. The question is asking you to tell whether the ordered pair is a solution of the inequality. So let's focus on question number 14. They want to know whether this ordered pair 1, 2, which stands for your x and y. So your x value is a 1 and your y value is a 2. So if you replace x as 1 and y as 2, they want you to know if this inequality will become true. So let's do this. So 2 over 5, I'm going to change it to 0.4 x plus y greater than or equal to 2. So you want to know whether this point will work for this inequality and make it come true. So replace your x as 1 and replace your y as 2. So I'm going to substitute my x as 1 and the y value, I'm going to replace it by 2. So if I have to highlight and show you, this is what I did. My x, I change it to a 1. My y, I change it to a 2, which is this. So greater than or equal to 2. So 0.4 times 1 is going to give you 0.4 plus 2 greater than or equal to 2. 2 plus 0.4 is going to give you 2.4, which is greater than or equal to 2, which is true. 2.4 is greater than 2. So since it is true, that means the point 1, 2 is a solution of this inequality. Now let's focus on question number 16. This is how your EOC question will look like. The graph of which inequality is shown. You are given 4 options to choose from and the graph is given. So using the graph which is given to you, you have to know which of these 4 inequalities will work for this graph. So the way that you're going to do is you're going to take a test point. So you're going to assume a test point. You can take any point that lies in the shaded region. Do not take a point that falls on the line. Leave the line alone and you can take any point that falls on the blue section. So for now, I'm going to take the point -2, -1. So I'm going to test this point. Let me call this point as -2 and -1. You can test any points of your choice. I am choosing this. So -2, -1. So this will be my x and this will be my y. So I'm going to test to see whether A will work. So I'm going to test A. So A is telling me x plus y less than or equal to -1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this test point x and y, I'm going to substitute over here. So x, I'm going to replace it by -2 and plus y, I'm going to replace it by -1. And I'm going to finish off everything. -2 combines with a -1 to give you a -3. And now I'm checking to see, I'm thinking, is -3 less than or equal to -1? The answer is yes. -3 is less than -1. So in this case, this inequality becomes true. So since this inequality becomes true, then A is my answer choice. If A doesn't work, then I have to test B, I have to test C, I have to test D to figure out which will work. Now focus on this question. They are asking you to graph the inequality. And question number 24 is what we need to do. Pause the video and copy down steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Copy down all the steps. And continue the video and let's start together. Step number 1. Get the y alone. So you got 5x minus y greater than or equal to 1. So you want to get the y alone, so that means you need to get rid of the 5x. So you're going to do minus 5x on this side and minus 5x on this side. Line 5x negative 5x cancels out, so you get minus y greater than or equal to, and you have 1 minus 5x. If you want to look like y equals mx plus b, then you have to shuffle this around, rearrange them to look like minus 5x and positive 1. Now remember, you want to get the y alone, so this is nothing but a -1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this by -1, divide this by -1, and divide this by -1. Now watch what I have to do. Because I divided this by negative number, I have to switch the symbol. So I'm going to reverse the symbol to look like this. -1 divided by -1 cancels out. I get y. And this is going to be a 5. -1 divided by negative 5 divided by -1 is positive 5x. Positive 1 divided by -1 is going to give me a -1. So this makes step number 1. Get the y alone. Now step number 2, find m. So in this case, m is 5. This looks like y equals mx plus b. So m is 5, so which means my m in this case is going to be positive. So once I figure out that this is going to be positive, my line is going to go like this. So that way you can eliminate 2 answer choices. Now let's focus on question number 3. Let's focus on step number 3. So you get y is less than or equal to 5x minus 1. Now, you have to assume as if it is an equation. So think of like an equation. Remove the inequality symbol and think like an equation. Now, step number 3, find the x and the y-intercept. So let's find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Now remember, you can find the x-intercept provided your y is a 0. So I'm going to replace my y as 0 and I'm going to solve for x. So I'm getting 1 equals 5x, and the last step is divide by 5, cancel, x equals 0.2. That is my x-intercept. Now go for my y-intercept. So y-intercept you can find out provided your x is a 0. So I'm going to replace my x as 0, which is going to give me y equals 5 times 0 is 0 minus 1. So I'm going to get y equals -1. So my step number 3 is find the x and the y-intercept, which is done. Now using the x and the y-intercept, I'm going to get my 2 points. So I'm focusing on my step number 4. So my 2 points in this case, my first point from here will be 0.2, 0. And from here, I'm going to get 0, -1. So that will be my step number 4. Now, once I get these 2 points, my step number 5 is I need to graph these 2 points. So I'm going to go for the graph. So the graph in this case is using 0.2, 0 and 0, -1. So let's do the graph. So 0.2, 0 in this case is going to be here, somewhere about. And 0 and -1 is going to be over here, somewhere about. Now, once I get this one, I have to go back to my original equation, an inequality. My inequality is y is less than or equal to 5x minus 1. Always keep that in mind. So graph using these 2 points. Now I have to decide between dotted and solid line. So that is my step number 6. Now deciding between dotted and solid line is easy if you focus on this equal sign. If there is an equal sign, just like you make it as a closed circle, in this case it will be a solid line. So the solid line in this case is going to look like this, with the arrows going in both the directions. So the line goes through here. Now, so once you get your line, now figuring out this is a solid line because of the equal sign, this is a solid line. Now you have to decide which direction to shade. So let me extend this line. and pull this line a little all the way to the edge. So once you cut this line, now you have to decide which direction to shade. So here comes your step number 7. Step number 7 is you need to choose a test point to figure out which part to shade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a test point. So you can either choose a point from this segment, or you can choose a point from the segment of the line. Do not take a point that falls exactly on your graph. So let me choose a test point. So I'm going to choose a test point of, say, 0 and 1. So I'm going to call this as my test point A. So for example, if I choose this point 0 and 1 as my test point A, I want to see whether I should be able to shade this direction or I should be able to shade this direction. So I'm going to go to my inequality. So this will be my X and this will be my Y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace my X and Y. My Y in this case becomes a 1 less than or equal to, and my X is 5 times 0 minus 1. So I'm going to get 1 less than or equal to 5 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. And now I'm thinking, is my 1 less than negative 1? Or is my 1 equal to negative 1? And in this case, it is false. This is not true, so it is false. So in this case, this point does not work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the opposite direction and I'm going to test a point. So this point did not work. So this was my false section. So now I'm coming to the other section and I'm going to test a point. So what I'm doing is I'm testing another point. So this time I'm going to test a point 1, comma, negative 1. So I'm going to go for a test point 1, negative 1. I'm going to test this point 1, negative 1. So I'm going to go to my inequality. In this case, this is my X and this is my Y. My Y is negative 1 less than or equal to 5 times 1. X I'm replacing by 1 minus 1. Negative 1 less than or equal to 5 minus 1. Negative 1 less than or equal to 4. And I'm thinking, is negative 1 less than 4? The answer is yes, it is. So that means this one makes it true. So that means this point makes this inequality come true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start shading this side of my line. So this is how my graph is going to look like. So what it really means is any point that falls on this side of the line will make this inequality come true. Since there are a lot of steps involved in this question, please make sure that you have rewinded and understood this multiple times. Now let's focus on question number 41. They are asking you to write an inequality. Now pause the video, copy the steps number 1, 2, 3, and 4, which I will check them in the class. So let's start after you're done copying. Step number 1, find M and B. So let's look at this question. Now, step number 1, to find the slope, you have to understand, will the slope be positive or will it be negative? In this case, the slope will be negative because it slopes down. Now, that is one cautious thing you have to remember. So that means my M in this case is going to be a negative answer. So now what I can do is I can take any 2 points that falls on the dotted line and I could find the slope of the line, or I can just do rise over run. So if I want to do rise over run, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go rise 1, 2, 3, and if I have to be more specific to show you, let's see. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So that'll be my rise. And my run in this case will be 1, 2, 3. So that'll be my run. So my rise is 3, my run is 3. This will be my rise, this will be my run. And in this case, you have to understand that the slope will be negative because it's sloping down. So negative 3 divided by positive 3 is going to give me a negative 1. So the first step, M is negative 1. Now B. Now if you look at B, let me delete this. Now, your B in this case is when your x is 0. So when your x is 0, if you're looking for the y value, your y value is also a 0. So your B is also a 0. So your y-intercept is when your x is 0. So if you look on the graph, which is dotted, you're trying to find what value of y will be when your x is 0, and that is your 0. So now step number 1 is done. Step number 2, you're going to write an equation that looks in the slope-intercept form. So what you're doing is you're writing y equals mx plus b, and that is going to look like y equals negative 1x plus 0. So you get y equals negative x. So step number 2 is done, which is y equals negative x. So now comes the third step. Now we are going to change your equal symbol to an inequality symbol. So which means you're going to replace it by a less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to symbol. In this case, you're looking at the line. It is dotted. So since it is dotted, you only got two options. You can either change it to a less than symbol or you can change it to a greater than symbol. You will not have the equal sign along with that because it is dotted. If it is solid, you can have a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to. Now that is your step number 3, which is deciding between these two. Step number 4, you're going to test a point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a test point. So a test point that falls within the shaded space. So I'm going to choose in this case to be negative 2, comma 1. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 2, comma 1. I'm going to choose this point. Do not choose a point that falls on the graph. So test point in this case is negative 2, comma 1. I want to see how my symbol is going to look like based on this. So this is my x and this is my y. So I'm going to go for my equation, which is y equals negative x. So now I'm going to replace my y as 1 and my x as negative 2. Now remember, I also have a negative. So negative and another negative. So this is going to be my 1. 2 negatives becomes a 2. Now instead of an equal sign, remember I have to choose between these two. So now I'm thinking 1 and 2. 1 is less than 2. So which means I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to change my inequality symbol to look like this. And this is the inequality that goes for this graph. Multiple steps involved in the question, and you have to make sure that you understand everything. So this will be the answer for this graph. Let's focus on question number 42. Once again, you have to write an inequality for the graph given. Step number 1, find M. So your M in this case, you have to understand if it's going to be a positive slope or a negative slope. Look at the green line. The green line is going up. It's a positive slope. So the answer is going to be positive. Now let's do the rise over run. So when I do my rise over run, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. So that is going to be my rise. And my run in this case is going to be from here 1, 2, 3 until you reach the graph. So my run is going to be a 3. So 3 over 3 is going to give me a 1 for my slope. So once I get my slope as 1, now I need to find my b. So my b is when my x is 0. So when my x is 0, this will be my y-intercept. So my y-intercept in this case is 2. You also have to understand your y-intercept is the point when the graph crosses or touches your y-axis. So you got your slope as 1 and your b as 2. So you can construct an equation y equals mx plus b. So you got y equals 1x plus 2, or you got y is equal to x plus 2. So once you got your equation, now you have to decide between the dotted line, the solid line. So that will give you between less than, and equal to, greater than or equal to. So let's eliminate the two options. Now look at the line. The line is a solid line. It is not dotted. Since it is a solid line, that means you have an option of between this and this, because that is the only one that have the two equal signs. So you can choose between here or here. To choose between them, you need a test point. So this is your step number 4. So you're going to choose a test point of say 1, 1. You have to choose a test point that falls within the shaded space. Do not take a point that falls on your line. Take any point that falls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for 1 and 1. This is my test point, which is within the shaded space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my equation y equals x plus 2, and I'm going to substitute my x and y. My y is a 1, my x is a 1 plus 2. So in this case is 1, and 1 plus 2 is 3. And now I'm thinking 1 and 3. 1 is less than 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to change the equal sign to an less than symbol. But keep in mind, this is not the answer, because since it is solid, it has to be less than or equal to. So my final answer is going to look like y is less than or equal to x plus 2, and that is the inequality for the graph.